been 4 years since Sony released the A6600, and 4 years later, this is the A6700 from Sony. First initial thoughts, it's great, but in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the things I love about it and some of my honest opinions about who it's for, and I'll also be talking about this as well. First of all, I want to talk about the photography side of the A6700 and kind of how it is in the real world. You guys know that I'm not a specs guy. I don't like just talking about specs. So for those that are, these are all the specs on the side here. You can just pause, screenshot, and then you'll get all of the specs, blah, 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 blah. Not my thing. I care about how it is to actually shoot with this camera, how it is in the hand, how it performs out in the field. And so far, I've run into absolutely zero issues, even at night time, using the f4 lens. And for what I do, for what I create, I think that it's fantastic. If I was a new photographer coming into the game, I'd be looking at buying this because it's a perfect hybrid camera, but I'll talk about why I think it's a hybrid camera later on and who I think it's perfectly suited for. Personally, for me, going out in the streets of Sydney, doing the POVs and stuff, it was lovely. It was really well balanced. Again, I'll talk about this at the end, but it was really well balanced. It performed really well, even with bigger lenses. It just felt really nice in the hand to take the photos. It never missed focus. It never missed a beat. And we know that with Sony's. We know that with Sony's that they don't miss autofocus. Autofocus on Sony's is just second to none. And there's nothing comparable for me personally. I've used other bodies and the autofocus in Sony's is always top notch and never lets me down. A feature on the newer Sony cameras is the recognition target. So it uses AI to determine the target that you predetermine to focus on. So for example, you have options like airplane, car, train, insects, animals, and people for an example. And then whatever you predetermine, it's going to be trying to focus on those things, which I think is personally really good, especially if you're going to go do wildlife or you're going to go do sport. You can predetermine that. And again, this is really good. I mean, if we do a little quick test for you guys to listen to, we'll put it in manual focus. There's no focus breathing, but the buffer is pretty insane. So if you're doing sports photography or anything high paced, you're going to be not missing any photos, especially with that autofocus. I'm speaking more about the vlog side of it and the video side of it next. So I want to do a little vlog test to see how it fares. Obviously you have the nice flippy screen, which is on that side of the camera, which is better than on the A6600, which flipped up behind and it was kind of blocked by the microphone. Now, on top of this, you have active steady shot. So what's currently on active steady shot, if I turn that off, this is just the standard active. So obviously when you go to active steady shot, it does crop in. So as you can see, it's a bit wider now. And if I turn it completely off, this is now completely off. Now, as you can see, much wider, you get the full 10mm on this 10-20 f4. Personally, I tend to not have active steady on because I have fairly stable hands and it is such a lightweight, compact camera that you can get away with it. Now, this camera is kind of comparable in my eyes to the Sony A7 IV. The reason being is because it's focused towards that hybrid shooter. Somebody that wants to go out and shoot video, do some vlogs, and then also at the same time, take some photos. And I think the photos on this camera are fantastic. There's a lot of similarities between the software when it comes to the A7R5 and this camera. As I am also talking about video, I just wanted to touch on that aspect. So I'm currently shooting in S-Log3, which is what I shoot in, and being able to shoot S-Log3 in this small, compact APS-C is fantastic. You get 10-bit, which is insane. You get, I think, 14 stops of dynamic range in S-Log3, which for what you're shooting on is pretty ridiculous. And I think we need to address how fantastic this is for the price and everything included. Yes, it's APS-C, but does that matter all that much? I think it's such a good compact camera that it's going to be aimed towards travelers, people that want to go and explore but not have to take all of their gear with you. And I think that's something that would suit me. Because I'm already shooting in full frame, I'm not going to swap over to an APS-C sensor purely based off the fact that I'm already shooting and I'm used to full frame. But if you have anything below the A6600 or anything where you're trying to get into photography, I definitely recommend getting the A6700 because it's such a good hybrid starting camera at an affordable rate. That was all shot with the active steady shot off. This is now with the active steady shot on, so it's a good comparison between the two. Obviously it does help, but as you can see, it crops in. But on a vlogging setup, I think that's plenty. There's plenty of room either side of me, which still works nicely. So you can decide for yourself, active steady shot or not. Personally, I don't use it. I like that kind of rough and ready. Later on in the video, I'm going to go through the things that I like about this camera and the things I don't like. But I wanted to mention earlier on, one of the things that I really don't like is the fact that it only has one SD card slot. So for me personally, that would be a deal breaker. Personally, because I like to back up my files, especially if I'm going on a photo shoot or I'm doing something specific for a client. I like to remove that possibility of a card corrupting. And if I have just one, I don't know, it's a little bit risky and I don't like playing that game. But if you're getting started, I guess it's okay to take that risk. Following on suit with that compact feel, that's where the new microphone's going. So as you can see, it is super compact, super small, and all of the audio so far that you've heard in that vlog section has been from this here, which is, to be honest, a big upgrade for me personally. I use the other Sony microphone currently, and I'm gonna be swapping to this because of how small it is. Again, when you're traveling, you want to make things as lightweight and accessible and easy as possible. This here is fantastic. So let me show you the back here. So you have the option to set how you kind of want the audio to be picked up. So you can either have it on completely full, which is this here, where it's picking up everything 360. So if you're behind the camera, in front of the camera, it's picking up all that noise. So you can pick up the seagulls or whatever's going on around you. Then you can get as specific as you please. So you have obviously front facing, and then front facing a bit more, and a bit more specific on the front facing. So you've got 3 options on the front facing microphone, which is fantastic. It means that you can have, let's say you've got 2 people, so you want it to be just here, that directional is just here. Whereas if you want it to be just yourself, you can set it to specifically just in front of the camera and it's only picking up that noise. Then you have stereo, and you have left and right, and then you have forward and backwards, and then you have just the rear. So if you're doing kind of like from behind the camera as documentary style or something, and you're narrating at the same time, you can do that, which is very good. Personally, I don't have any issues with it so far. I've enjoyed it. I'll link it below because I think it's a great all-round Sony microphone. So what are the things I don't like about this camera? Firstly, it's been 4 years since the A6600, and this here, the viewfinder, I just feel like there hasn't been any upgrade. When you look at its competitors with Fujifilm and stuff like that, they've upgraded their cameras to have a different form factor. I know it's compact and it's still there, but that's one thing I don't like about it. The other thing as well is I would have liked to have had the little joystick here. I know it's obviously trying to keep everything compact and small, but if there was a way of having maybe the function button moved up top, because there's a lot of empty space just here. You see here, so there's enough room for another button there, and then you could have the joystick, which is going to help you select things as well. But that's coming from a place where I used the Sony A7 IV and I missed that on here. Now obviously as well, you do have the button to slide between photo, video and S&Q, and it's quite clunky, which is good because it means that you can't just knock it. But I have already knocked it from video into photo by mistake, not realizing, and then pressing record. Obviously these are just tiny little things, but if there was a way to lock it in place like in the other setups on the A7 IV and the other newer cameras, that would have been fantastic too. Now the other thing that I personally would like to have seen is having maybe a physical dial of some sort, or making it easier to change the exposure compensation, because when you're shooting S-Log3 you want to make sure that you're a +1.7 or +2, and when I'm like, it's really fiddly, it's just down here, like it's really small to play around with. I would personally like I don't know, I'd like it in a different way, but that's me being picky. Things I love about it: the photos are great, video capabilities are fantastic, vlogging setup fantastic, compact form factor fantastic, the grip itself is amazing, the ergonomics of everything else is fine, the buttons are fantastic. I would say that maybe the record button could have been placed a little bit better, because you can set the shutter button to be the record button, but I just feel like I don't know, it's a bit I've got to like, yeah, I've got big hands though, so maybe if you've got smaller hands, you'll be all good. But there's just a couple of things that I'm picky things that I'm not, you know, a fan of. And then also I would have liked to, on future Sony cameras, just to get rid of these little annoying, just get rid of them. Sony, on it, just, they're not needed. Get rid of them and then just put like a rectangle mount instead of just this small metal mount. Make a rectangle mount and it's just going to be better. It's going to be able to sit on the sides better, not just fall around like it does if you put it down on the side. It's just a better form factor. Personally, I don't like the way that Sony does their mounts on the side. That's just another thing I don't like about Sonys in general. However, I love the flippy screen. It's fantastic that you have it. Every single camera these days should have one because it's just the standard. So make sure you stick around for the POVs that I'm going to be dropping soon. I do generally love the camera. I think it's fantastic. And the microphone, second to none. If you have a Sony, just go and get a Sony microphone because they're so much better than having all the dangly leads and everything. Just it's definitely worth it. 8 out of 10 for me. Solid camera. I highly recommend it if you're a hybrid shooter or you want to do photo, video, and you want to travel and you want that camera you can rely on. Link it below. Enjoy it. Before we sign out, I'm going to quickly jump into the hashtag OpticalWander and have a look at some of the content you guys have been creating over the last couple of days. The hashtag is up to 723,000 posts, which is absolutely incredible to see how far we've come. I'm just going to change the filter to the recent top posts. Okay, so we're on the recent top posts. They've changed the way they do hashtags now. So we're going to go with this one, which is from South Optic, which is in London off the Tube. We're going to keep going down. We've got a nice street shot here. That's very nice, very candid in Cuba. Candid in Cuba, what a name. Another London one of the Shard. I like that from Kluka Captures. I don't know, maybe I'm saying that wrong, sorry. And this one here of some neon lights is pretty sick. And I'm just seeing which ones kind of like grab my eyes just as I'm like scrolling down. Oh, these are sick. Look at the lights on this. Look at the halation, that's sick. And then nice timing shot there. And then let's do one more before we sign out this video. There's a lot of London ones. Wow, thank you so much to the London community. Really appreciate it. This one here, which is in Poland from BorkoGraphy. Oh, you've done the before and after as well. That's sick. Bro, you've done so well on that editing. That's nice. Talking of editing, if you do want to buy my presets, there's a link in the description. Go and check them out. They are super affordable. You get 125 plus presets. It's a ton of presets. Go and enjoy. With all that being said, create more, stress less, and I'll see you in the next one.